it's Affy and Valentine, and today I am here to do my August and September wrap up. I did not get through very many books either month, and so I figured I would just put the 2 months together. In August I read 4 books, and in September I had a visitor in town. My mom was in town for 2 weeks, so I only got through 1 book in September. So I read a total of 5 books between August and September. I wasn't about to do one video for 1 book, so I figured I would just roll everything into one video all together. In August, I read all new to me authors. So I read Erica Ridley, Scarlett Scott, Lenora Bell, and Christy Carlisle. And then in September, I read Elisa Kleypas books. So the first book that I read in August is by Christy Carlisle, like I said. This is Lady Meets Earl, a love on holiday novel, and I really like the cover on this one. In this book we have Lady Lucy Westmont and James Pembroke. He is an Earl. Lucy talks her dad into letting her go see her aunt. She has an aunt that lives, I think, in Scotland, and she just wants to get out of town. She feels like her life isn't going anywhere, and she just wants to do something or be somewhere different. And then we have James, who he's just become an Earl, and he has just found out that his uncle, who he took over the earldom from, the one who recently died, is, he left the earldom in ruins. There's no money and there are debts to be paid. And on top of that, James has his own debts that he has to repay. And so he's kind of in a double whammy. They meet on a train to Scotland, and it's kind of a love at first sight. Like, they bump into each other on the train tracks and they're both a little interested. There's this guy that's being really skeevy on the train, and James is able to kind of save Lucy. She's with these other women and this guy is being skeevy and he tries some shit, and James kind of steps in and saves her. So they sit down, they talk for the rest of the train ride, and by the time they get off the train, they're both kind of pining for each other. And so they say goodbye and they're both a little sad about it, but then she gets to her aunt's house and she realizes her aunt isn't there, and all the staff are just a Twitter. They're just like whispering in the hallways, and she's like, well, what's going on? Like, my aunt's not here. You guys are all freaking out. What is going on? Well, James is there. And it turns out that his uncle had a mistress, and that mistress is actually Lucy's aunt. And he had given the aunt all this property in Scotland, and she's been living there for like decades now, and he decided that he wanted to sell this property because it's one of the only ways that he can make money to pay off his debts. And so he showed up. The staff are realizing what's going on. Her aunt is nowhere to be found. She's freaking out. And of course, Lucy is just kind of confused by the entire situation. So they're all kind of sitting back, waiting for her aunt to come back to town. In the meantime, it's just Lucy and James and the staff at the house spending time together and kind of trying to figure out how to work around this situation. This book was really, really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I like Christy Carlisle's writing, and the story itself was very fun, very interesting, but there were definitely 1 or 2 points about it that got on my nerves. Mostly just the characters and like choices that they made, decisions that they came across based off of pride. So one of my favorite characters in this book was actually Lucy's aunt. She's very forward-thinking for this time period. Very forward-thinking ideas about men and women and relationships. Even though she was a little bit rude when they first bumped into each other, like it was just a bit of an attitude, just kind of like, watch where you're going. She had one of those kind of attitudes when they first bumped into each other, but it still felt like a meet cute despite that. Like, he's over here just like, oh, I'm so sorry, like picking up her books for her, and she's like at first just kind of like, oh, watch where you're going, and then she kind of actually sees him and she's like giving him the the up and down. She's like, actually, okay, maybe you're not that bad. Like I said, I really liked her aunt. I really liked the story. I enjoyed the characters. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I wanted to give it a 5, but like I said, there were just some decisions that were being made that I was not agreeing with. People just being very prideful, and I just wanted to shake their necks and be like, come on, man, just come on. So the next book I read in August is by Lenora Bell. This is for the Duke's Eyes Only. And in this book we have Daniel and we have India. And Daniel is a duke. He's the Duke of Ravenwood. And Daniel is a spy. And when Daniel and India were children, they lived next door to each other. They loved just running around the countryside looking for treasures together. They would go and dig stuff up and save whatever they found, or at least he would save whatever they found. And she was always like, I'm going to give it away to a museum, which I thought was really cute. But they both have this huge love of history. And then his father dies. And everything goes to shit. His family moves away. He kind of disappears for a while. They don't see each other for years. And when they do, he's kind of turned into this asshole and she's not sure like what happened. And so she doesn't really like him and he just kind of avoids her. So 12 years later, India still has a love of history. And she sneaks into an antiquities meeting. It's all men. And she sneaks in there. She dresses as a man and she sneaks in. And her whole reason that she sneaks in is that they have the Rosetta Stone somewhere in the building. And she's doing some research on the Rosetta Stone. And she sneaks out of the meeting and goes into the room where the Rosetta Stone is. And Daniel kind of sneaks in there with her and he's like, I know who you are. Like, nice try, India. I can tell it's you. As they're talking, she realizes that the Rosetta Stone is not the actual Rosetta Stone. She's really smart and she knows her stuff. He's told by his handler to get on it and basically find the Rosetta Stone. So he's basically on this mission to go find it. And India decides that she wants to join the mission. She's an adventurous like that. And he's basically trying to talk her out of it. He's like, you can't come. And so they get into an argument and then they start making out. And there's some ass grabbing. Like, it gets intense. And they get walked in on by a reporter, like a news reporter walks in on them ass grabbing and making out. She decides to lie and say that they are engaged. And this news reporter, you can tell, is basically like, this is going to be the news of the century. Because it's kind of known in town that they don't really like each other. She ends up following him to go start this mission to find the Rosetta Stone. And so they end up having to work together to find it. And it's just a very fun story. It's very fun. I really enjoyed myself with this one. I like that, you know, despite years apart from each other, years where they didn't speak, they still had this love for one another. And I think it kind of shows in the fact that, you know, they still knew one another, they still understood one another, and kind of, you know, I remember when you used to do X, Y, and Z, like you always loved so-and-so, or, you know, you have a bad habit of whatever. They just, like, they still knew one another, even as grown-ups who hadn't seen each other for years. And I thought that was really beautiful. I really like this one. Like I said, interesting story. India is such a fun character. I really like India. Daniel, despite being not a good spy, is also pretty cool. He's a cool guy. So I just really enjoyed this one. I did end up giving it 4 stars. I might give it 4.5, just because it was so much fun and it had some really good, very laughable moments. I think maybe I'll give it a 4.5 instead. The next book that I read in August is actually a novella, and this is by Scarlett Scott. This is part of the Duke's Most Wanted series, Forever Her Duke. And I had been wanting to read Scarlett Scott for quite a while, so I'm glad I finally got around to it. And even though this was a novella, it was definitely very heart-wrenching and hard-hitting, and I really liked it. So we've got Vivi and Court. Court is the Duke, and he basically ran off for a year after he and Vivi got married. So her brother had passed away, and they were caught shortly after her brother passed away, and forced to marry. And shortly after that, he kind of just disappeared, and she believes that he's been gallivanting around Europe. She is rightfully very upset with him, and so this is basically a second chance love story. And like I said, it was a very quick read, very easy read, but it was still so good. I definitely felt for both of them. They both kind of went through it after her brother died, and I think the biggest issue for her had been the fact that he wasn't really there for her in that year after her brother died. And so, yeah, this one was just so sweet and so touching. And this whole entire series, I think there are about 5 to 7 books in the series, are about all her and her friends. I'm really looking forward to the other novellas in this series, if they're as good as this one. So the next book that I read in August, or this was the last book that I read in August, is The Duke Heist by Erica Ridley. And this is the first book in this series. I can't remember the name of the series. But this book was so funny. This book was hilarious. I really enjoyed myself with this one. We've got Lawrence, who's a duke, and then we've got Chloe Winchester, and she is actually an orphan who was kind of adopted by a baron. So she's the adopted daughter of a titled gentleman. So despite the fact that she was adopted by this baron, people don't take her and her siblings seriously because they are and did grow up on the streets. Chloe and her siblings, the Winchester family, they had this painting that their adopted father had gotten from Lawrence's father. For whatever reason, this guy went and stole the painting back, and they loved that painting so much. It was a painting that kind of represented their family. And so they were basically like, we're going to do whatever we have to do to get that painting back. Like, that painting it's everything to us. Chloe, being the boring / unassuming / nobody really pays attention to her person in the family, she basically finds out that he is courting this young woman and plans to give this young woman the painting as a gift. So she decides she's going to show up at the book club of the woman that he's currently courting, and so she's able to swap it out, get the original, or at least what they think is the original. And on her way out the door, she hops onto this carriage and starts driving away, only to find that the Duke is in the carriage, and he thinks that she has kidnapped him. He thinks that she's done it for like nefarious reasons to try and get him to marry her. And they had been trying to get in touch with him for like a while, ever since his father died, to see if he would give them back this painting. And so they kind of felt like, you know what, it's owed to us. You didn't pay us enough attention to give us back what rightfully belonged to us. Like, we bought this fair and square and it's ours. And so him not responding to their messages to kind of get the painting back, they felt like this was just what they had to do. They get the painting home and they realize that it's a fake. It doesn't have the right main character in the picture. Like, the main character is like smiling in the original picture and he's like frowning in the one that they stole. And so they're like, oh no, we still have the wrong painting. What are we to do? And so they finally realize they're gonna have to get deep in the cut. Like, they're gonna have to like inject themselves into Lawrence's life and find a way to get this painting from him somehow. Chloe and her sister Tommy, Tommy dresses up as like an old lady as her chaperone, and Tommy is so funny as a chaperone. She plays this old lady character very, very well, and they kind of come up with an excuse for her to see Lawrence regularly. And of course, in that time the two of them spend together, they start to have feelings for one another. Once he realizes kind of why she had taken so much interest in him, he's very upset, but I kind of felt like it was his own fault because they had tried to do things the right way and ask him, you know, for their rightful property, and he had ignored them. This was so interesting. I like the premise. I really enjoyed Tommy. Chloe is, you kind of feel for her because she's got this like vibrant spirit, but people kind of ignore her, and she's just kind of there. And she kind of uses that to her advantage, but she wants to be seen. She wants to be a person that's taken seriously. And so I really felt for her in some ways because of that. And then Lawrence could be a bit of a dick at times. Like, he definitely had some biases and had his own feelings towards their family, and because of who they are, he kind of looked down on them in a way and didn't take them seriously. But her family is amazing. I wish I could be a Winchester. The Winchesters are so fun. They all have like their little thing that they're interested in and are good at, and they just take care of one another. This was a good one. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. Like I said, really enjoyed myself. Great storyline. And Erica Ridley's writing is just, it's fun. It's really, really fun. So another book that I really enjoyed in August. I feel like August was just a good reading month for me altogether. So the one and only book that I read in September, this is the last book in the Ravenel series. This is Devil in Disguise by Lisa Kleypas. So in this book we have Keir McCrae, he's Scottish, and Merritt Sterling. And Merritt is the daughter of, if you have read The Wallflowers, she's the daughter of Marcus and Lillian. And Merritt is a widow, and she now works for her husband's company. It's a shipping company, and she and her brother are running the shipping company together, and it's going very well. She's been able to manage. It's been like a year since her husband died, and she's been doing a great job running this company as a woman during this time and age, of course. One day there's an issue with the shipment, and Keir walks in, and he's really upset because he's got something has gone wrong with his shipment, and he's just really pissed off. And so her being kind of the head of the company, she's like, okay, I'm gonna talk to him, I'm gonna smooth things over. And he sees her and his anger dissipates. He's like, oh my God, this woman is gorgeous. She's over here trying to do her job and be a businesswoman and be businesslike, but she's just like, oh my God, this man is fine as fuck, and I can't I can't stay serious about what I'm supposed to be doing. So she ends up inviting him to her house, which her brother is like, that's a bad idea. And he's just so good looking. Like, she cannot stop oogling this man. She invites him to come have dinner with her. And she's basically like, I expect you to be there at 8 sharp. And he's just kind of like, I don't know that that's a good idea, that I should even come to your house. Like, you're a single woman. That could look bad. And she's like, I expect you to be there at 8 sharp. And so he's basically like, I guess I gotta show up. She said she's expecting me, so I gotta go. And on his way to go see her, he gets attacked and is stabbed. And so he shows up on her doorstep. He's been stabbed. He's not doing too good. She has to call a doctor to come check on him. After they've spent a night together and things are going really, really great, he goes home and he's in his apartment complex, just kind of reminiscing about the night that they've had together, and the building starts to catch on fire and he has to jump 3 stories out of a window to escape. And when she comes to see him again, he has lost his memory. Like, he can't remember her. They've only known each other for like less than a week, and so he doesn't remember her, and she's basically just like gutted by this. It's a family connection, and he's not too excited about it when he first kind of finds out his connection to the Wallflower characters. I'm not going to say who because I don't want to ruin it for you if you haven't read the book. But when he kind of finds out his connection to them, he's originally not very happy about it. It actually kind of pisses him off. Him and Merritt are they're just like this. Like, they can't stay away from one another, and they're just like glue together, the two of them. And it really is, in a lot of ways, like a love at first sight sort of story, which I don't always love, but I really like it in this story. She met him and knew immediately that that was going to be her man. And she put her foot down and was like, I'm gonna make it happen. I don't care if you lost your memory. I don't care if you don't want to come over for dinner. Like, we're gonna be together. It's happening. Merritt knew what she wanted, and she did what she had to do to get it. Kier was funny. The way that Lisa Kleypas wrote his accent was just so funny to me. I've read quite a few books where the authors have written the accents out in like a way that makes it easy for you to hear the accent the way that it's written. And in this one, I was like, Lisa, like, I love you, but the way you are writing his accent is so weird. Like, there were times where it was like, okay, yeah, there you go. Like, that's a very Scottish sounding sentence. And then other times where it was like, what is that even a word? Like, what is she talking about? And I just thought it was funny. It was kind of all over the place with the accent. So that made me laugh a little bit. As a whole, great book. I give it 5 stars. I love this series. Gosh, I don't think she's gonna write any more books in this series, but it would be so great if she did, because this series was so good. Like, I love the Wallflowers and I love the Hathaways, but like, I really, really, really enjoyed the Ravenel series. I will say that I've noticed in this series as a whole, there are quite a few stories of the men like being hurt or being sick in some sort of way, and the women having to care for them while they coalesce like somewhere out in the countryside. It happens in the first book, it happens in Ethan Ransom's book, and it happens in this book. And I was like, she's got like a whole theme going on here with the men who get sick and have to go coalesce in the countryside. Like, It's just what happens in these books, but I love it every time. Like, it works every time. So if you made it to the end of this video and you want to leave us a emoji, go ahead and leave the puppy emoji, and we will see you in the next video, which hopefully will not take over a month to do. Hopefully I'll be back sooner than that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.